Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Stygian Onslaught. We've got a new endgame mode, and honestly, I like it. It's far from perfect, and there are many things we're gonna have to talk about, but there's also a lot of good stuff, and I've been having a blast playing it. I've gone crazy using up all of my fragile resin that I had saved up, both on my main account and on the new account I started for this game mode, started about a week ago. Before I get into anything, I will say I have not beaten Dire, which is the highest difficulty, and honestly, I don't think it's happening. As of recording this video, my Verissa, which is arguably my strongest character, is banned. My Verissa is not allowed because I did a charity stream about a month ago where one of the donation incentives was that my viewers would get to decide on a character I wouldn't be allowed to play for a month. And so my Verissa has been banned, and with the units I have access to right now, I'm pretty sure it's not possible on my account to clear any of the 3 bosses in the Dire difficulty. On one hand, I don't know how much I like how much it feels like it's a whale check, and there's also obviously the elemental specific weaknesses and all of that we'll get into later on in this video. But on the other hand, I do think it's nice that there's content that isn't just like trivial brain dead to do. For context, the boss that I am the closest to being able to kill in this difficulty is the Lavadragon statue, and I think it might be possible once my Verissa gets unbanned, but only if I play well and I build my team accordingly, which I think is really cool. I like that there's content that rewards you for understanding the baseline of how the game works and learning when certain units are better versus when they're worse. I don't like when those units are new, shiny, limited 5 stars that the game makes you feel like you have to get in order to clear the content. And unfortunately, there's definitely a certain amount of that in this game mode. I think the best way to think about it, though, is Dire difficulty is not for you. It's not for me. Dire difficulty is something that's meant to reward people that like going on constellations and signature weapons on their favorite characters in a way that just can't happen in Abyss. The rewards for Dire difficulty are only temporary cosmetics, right? It's weapon skins that only last until the end of the patch. And so if you don't get it, it's not the end of the world. You still get all the Mora, the Primo Gem, and the, with reroll system rewards. One thing that bothers me personally is I honestly wish that they did one of 2 things for this. Either, instead of giving us 2 minutes on the timer, give us 10 minutes on the timer, but make it so you only get the rewards if you kill it in 2 minutes. Or make it so that when you get to your screen that shows you how far you've gotten, if you go to battle records, for example, here, right, where it tells me what my fastest sum of all 3 was, which, by the way, I didn't focus too much on min-maxing the time for this. I just went into it with good teams once, and then I started testing less good teams. So we'll get this down later on, don't you worry about that. But I wish there was also a marker of difficulty 6 of what percentage of the boss's HP you have done in the given 2 minutes. I think that would make it so that even if you're not able to clear it, it still feels fun to at least attempt. See how far you can push it. With the way it is, it's pretty clear that at least for these 2 enemies, no matter what I do, no matter how well I play, no matter what team I do, unless I get constellations or signature weapons, I'm not gonna clear it. It's just not happening. It's not possible. Which means I don't have an incentive to try because it doesn't save anywhere how close I got, which I think is just really sad. As much as I have many problems with Abyss, the fact that you can get 2 or 1 stars in Abyss is good design. Like, that's a good thing. That's how it should be. And so, for the rest of this video, I'm mainly going to focus on the difficulty 5 stuff. So what about Fearless, which is difficulty 5? So it has some problems, but it also has some pretty great aspects to it. So, you have Tulpa, you have Lavadragon, you have Cryo Automaton. What are the best things to do for each? For Cryo Automaton, you need Cryo. It's technically possible to clear without a Cryo carry, but not without Cryo. Like, unless you're an Omega Whale, you're not clearing without Cryo, because it has 110% resistance in its Night Soul phase, instead of the 30-50 that it has in Abyss. So you need Cryo. But on top of that, you're heavily incentivized to bring a Cryo carry, not just Cryo supports. Because its base resistances are 30% to everything except Cryo, which is a minus 30%. That's right, you're getting more shred than you get from Escoffier for free for your Cryo damage on that enemy. I did a decent amount of testing on this boss, And I would say that Skirk without Escoffier is much easier than any non-cryo carry will be. I tried Neuvillette with Escoffier Citlali, and honestly, I ended up giving up. I think it's possible with really, really, really good RNG, but I don't think it's possible without resetting until I get good Witsith RNG. Like, it's actually locked behind Witsith RNG at my level of investment. If you have a cryo carry, though, you should be fine. I wasn't able to do it without Skirk because I don't have Ayaka, I don't have Ganyu, I don't have Risley. I think it is doable with them, though. Very doable with Escoffier and any of them. Maybe a bit more difficult if you don't have Escoffier, although you might be able to get away with it if you have really, really good builds. The Automaton has some differences, right? I've already mentioned the higher resistances to, like, with the Nightfall mode, so you absolutely need to bring Cryo. But the other one that I didn't mention is that Cryo does not reduce its bar by as much as it does in Overworld or in Abyss. By default, it reduces it by 4, and I believe here it's either 3 or 2. Anyway, so as far as I'm aware, your Cryo hits knock down the bar by 3 instead of 4, which means that you need even more Cryo than you do in Abyss. Because of that, having a third Cryo here is much better than having a Hydro. This is how they're gonna sell Shenhe, by the way. This is how they're gonna make you feel like Shenhe is actually worth pulling, because your other options for Skirk that are good in this slot generally don't tend to have a lot of cryo application outside of Shenhe. I got away with it just fine using Kea. You can also use Citlali, although if you do use Citlali, it will enter its Night Soul mode. If you're also bringing the Cryo down, it won't have high resistances in the Night Soul mode, but it's scary and dangerous in the Night Soul mode. If you bring the Cryo to 0, it stops his next attack, though. So, as long as you're playing well, it is doable with Citlali, but it will be more difficult. Right, it doesn't stop the current attack, but it prevents him from doing the next one. I'll actually show it. We gotta stay in Night Soul next to it. It's almost in there. And there it is, right? It's gonna start spawning these like, pillars that are gonna target you like this. But unlike in the Overworld and the Abyss version, there's 2 pillars that alternate. Which means you can't really just go, like, bait the pillar back and then run into him. You have to, like, constantly stay moving. Now, bringing his, like, emptying his bar here does not stop the current pillars, but while it's empty, it won't make a new one. So if you somehow manage to get it to 0 through the first pillar, or sorry, through the first 2 pillars. Okay, so he's about to get into his thing. He'll get into it now. Here, I'm gonna try to bait the first pillar here. We got the first 2 pillars, and here we just want to make sure we keep hitting him. And as you can see, he's not moving the pillars anymore because we're keeping it at 0. And once the pillars stop moving, they also stop attacking you. But as soon as it goes back above 10, they start moving again. However, they'll start moving at around the same speed, so they're a little bit easier to deal with. The point being here is that you can use Citlali, you just have to understand how the mechanic works. Alright, next is the Lavadragon statue. It has a little bit more power resistance in the second phase than the Abyss version, but the rest of the resistances are the same, and it's already too high to really deal pyro damage anyways. And the other change is that he gets his shield filled up at the exact same speed for pyro hits, but much slower from pyro application. In other words, burning clears the shield about as fast as it does in Abyss or in Overworld. But pyro application, so Pyronado, Bennett E-spam, stuff like that, is slower, and noticeably slower. You have basically 2 main options here. Either go all in on the application and try to get 3 downs, or 2, try to get 2 downs. Getting 3 downs is possible, but it's very difficult to have a lot of time on your 3rd down. And so generally, it tends to be better to try to focus on maximizing your damage in a team that gets 2 down. And if you're only looking for 2 down, you generally don't need that much team building focused on bringing down the bar. Generally, 2 of the following is gonna be enough. So, Bennett, Xiangling, Emilie, Kenich. Obviously not Emilie and Kenich with no pyro, but you get it. Chevreuse. I'd say those are the main 5, I guess. Kazuha works. Kazuha's much worse than he is in Abyss, though, because a lot of his stuff is application, and he's not that fast to begin with. Tosca's fine. Lanyon's alright. The main teams you're looking for are either pyro carries, where you either go with monopyro with Xiangling, or bring Emilie, or both. That's option 1. Option 2 is go in with a Kenichi team. Option 3, go in with a Chevaleur's team. This is the sort of team that will never get 3 down. But if you play it well, if you get your Fav procs early, and you remember that Chevaleur's burst shreds the bar, you'll be fine to get 2 downs. Speaking of which, Favonius weapons are insanely broken in this mode because there are so many characters that just don't do anything until they get their burst, and getting your burst like 10 seconds faster because you put 2 Fav weapons on your team is generally gonna lead to more DPS over 2 minutes of fighting than using a damage weapon. Honestly, Fav weapons are borderline necessary in this mode. A team like this can get away without Favs a bit more easily because you can just skip your Farina burst first rotation, skip your Escoffier burst first rotation, so you're fine. If you skip both of the bursts, the only thing you're missing out on is the fanfare. But there's a lot of teams where you borderline need to have Favs on the team, which is even more of an incentive to not refine your Favs. Keep multiple Favs because you're going to need them everywhere. This is a mode where Fav is even better than usual, where you need 3 teams at the same time. Don't refine your Favs unless you already have more than enough. Now that we have 3 different teams, 4 Fav lances. Actually, for me, I need 4 Fav lances in order to play my best teams. Getting back on track, generally, overload electro carries or pyro carries or Kenichi. Technically, you can also do a few other things. I guess the biggest, last option you have is Molani. But you definitely have to accept that it's going to be harder. And finally, we have the Tulpa. The Tulpa, much like the Automaton, has some different mechanics than it does in Abyss and Overworld. There are 2 main mechanics you care about. The first is the half Tulpas, or the mini Tulpas. Mini Tulpas are really scary, because if he absorbs them, he heals. He heals for 12.5%, I think, of his max HP, for each Tulpa absorbed, which means that's a quarter of his HP if you don't kill either of them. Okay, so he's clearly around 75, a little bit higher than 75. And he's gonna heal to full, right? Yeah, he heals to full, yeah. It's 12.5 per Tulpa he absorbs. So that's a quarter of his max HP he just gets back if you don't kill the Tulpas. So you gotta kill the Tulpas. How do you kill the mini Tulpas? 3 options. Option number 1, apply so much element to them that you break their shields. Yeah, that's option number 1. Option number 2, just murder them. They don't just have a shield bar, they also have an HP bar, which means you can just kill them if you have enough damage. Okay, Q. Good luck actually targeting them, though. Anyways, you can just kill them even without breaking the shield. That option, honestly, also kind of sucks, especially because of how bad the targeting is. Option number 3. Do this. Option number 3, hit them with Cryo 1 time. If you hit them with Cryo 1 time, they die. It's not a Sitlali Oli thing. I'm using Sitlali because Sitlali is good in this team, but you can do it with any Cryo unit. In practice, you only really have 2 options. Either use Cryo, or use a unit that is so good at breaking Hydro Elemental shields in AoE that she can trivialize the shield check. And there's only 1 unit, and it's Nahida, right? You just hold E once, and then keep hitting the big Tulpa, and you're fine. Because Dendro is twice as effective at breaking Hydro shields, because it's a forward side reaction for Bloom, right? You just do your E, and then you just hit this guy. Just hit him a few times. And just the Blooms, gonna be more than enough. I'd say that, as a general rule, it's either bring Nahida or bring Cryo. I would not recommend other options. That being said, the fact that you can choose between bringing Nahida and Cryo means that you have a bit more flexibility in your team building against Tulpa compared to the other bosses. Obviously, you can just do any Pyro carry or Cryo carry against Tulpa. I wouldn't do a Cryo carry because then that means you also need a different Cryo carry for the Automaton. But, I mean, you can if you have multiple. Why not, I guess. The other option is to use a Pyro carry. But finally, you can slot in Nahida in any team. Or a Cryo in any team. And there's quite a few teams that can slot in Nahida or a Cryo. A lot of Pyro carries, obviously, can use either. But also, Hyperbloom. I said the word, I said the thing. Hyperloom is actually pretty good. The biggest problem with Hyperloom against Tulpa is that there aren't that many great units for Hyperbloom that deal non-hydro damage. Outside of your Nahida and your trigger, your other units are kind of gonna suck. You can use Alhaitham works, you can use Tifnari works, you can use Fischl, you can use... But because the Tulpa has an innate hydro, you're not gonna get a single aggravate or spread on any of those Dendro or Electro characters. That being said, Hyper Bloom default DPS is just enough for this. I did a clear with Nahida, Raiden, Fischl, Zhongli. I just didn't want to have to think too much, so I put a shield on the team. I did a clear with Nahida, Raiden, Tifnari, Baiju. Just get as many blooms as possible and have Raiden proccing them. But yeah, all in all, Fearless, difficulty 5, Stygian Onslaught is definitely more difficult than Abyssal, like without a doubt. But it's still in the realm of possibilities for a free-to-play player that doesn't really go for constellations or signature weapons. That being said, against certain bosses, you're going to be very reliant on having the right unit. If you don't have the right unit, you probably would need a constellation or a signature weapon. I will say, for the DPS with default Hyperloom is like just barely enough to make it if you don't add in like Alhaitham or Tifnari for damage. I was able to do it, and it wasn't too difficult for me because I've played this team way too much. But if you're struggling with it, that's normal. It might not be the best thing available for you. There are 2 characters that get Omega boosted by the second mechanic from the Tulpa, which I haven't talked about yet, which is the shield. After the timer hits a minute 20, the next attack that the Tulpa will do, he's going to shield himself up, and you have to break the shield in time. If you don't break the shield in time, this is what happens. You die. It goes through iframes, including burst iframes. You just die. However, when he gets his shield, he also refreshes your cooldowns and your energy. What that means is that if you're paying attention to his attacks and to the timer, is he gonna do it now? I think so. You can do this. Double Gorba, double Pyronado. There are a few characters that benefit from this a little more than others, and I think that the 2 characters that benefit from it the most are Xiangling and Arlecchino, which is why I was using this team. Arlecchino resets her cooldown of her skill, but it doesn't remove the skill from the enemy. So you just get a second mark. You can start your rotation with an additional skill, and once the mark's cooked properly, you just target attack and keep attacking, right? So you can do this. Right, as you can see, my mark is cooking right now. And I get another mark right here. I did not mean to target attack there. Obviously, you gotta kill the mini Tulpas once that happens, but... Characters that can get a major benefit from getting an additional instance of a skill or a burst get so much better against the Tulpa. On top of that, the DPS required for the shield is pretty similar to the DPS required for the Tulpa in general, which means that unless you're like really over-invested, you need to be DPSing the whole time. Otherwise, you won't clear the shield in time. Yeah, I guess you could use a Skirk double burst, right? Do a Skirk burst, get the reset, do another Skirk burst, go refresh your buffs, do a normal attack rotation. Omega roided out rotation. You could do double Mawika burst if you want. There, you have a lot of options of characters that can benefit from it. But in my opinion, the ones that benefit from it a lot while also being easy to benefit from it are Arlecchino and Xiangling. So that's what I would recommend if you have those. But honestly, any carry with Xiangling. This is such a good onslaught for Xiangling. She's insanely broken against Tulpa, right? You get guaranteed vapes on all your hits. You get double hits pretty much on every single hit because the Tulpa hitbox is really big. And you get double Pyronado when it shields up. But on top of that, Xiangling is also one of the best ways of knocking down this shield quickly. So, Xiangling enjoyers rejoice, and Xiangling haters, you're used to it, man. You're used to her being good. Anyways, that pretty much does it for what I wanted to talk about for Stygian Onslaught as of day 1 of testing. I've been live for like 10 hours, tested a lot of stuff. We've enjoyed the plus 15% artifact efficiency. Speaking of which, this is the best moment to spend your fragile resin. There is no limit to how many times you can get the extra artifact drop every 120 resin spent. And it's the very first time we have ever had an unlimited, like, resin efficiency upgrade. It's limited by time, but it's not limited in number of redeems. As far as we know, it's going to be available for the first 10 days of each reset of Stygian Onslaught. But this is just your friendly reminder to, if you're going to be spending fragile resin on a domain, do it during Stygian Onslaught. Anyways, hope you enjoyed, hope you learned a thing or two, and as usual, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, YouTube.